Future Now Show. Brought to you by the Club of Amsterdam.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Future Now Show. Today, we're discussing AI with Dr. Schloer, Harish Shah, and Mario de Vries. Dr. Harish Shloer is a German-born data scientist, futurist, speaker, geopolitical analyst, and board member of several global think tanks, including the Club of Amsterdam. He is the founder and CEO of Cognitive Intelligence, as well as the founder of Schloer Consulting Group, co-founder of RavenPack and Prisma Analytics, and notably the creator of the quantum relation theory and co-author of the quantum relations principle. Hardy is recognized for his key inventions in cloud computing in the late 90s and C+8, the breakthrough cognitive artificial intelligence platform. We're also joined by the Singapore futurist, Harish Shah, an autodidact and polymath recognized for being Singapore's first local-born professional futurist, as well as the founder and sole proprietor of Stratserv Consultancy, the first ever homegrown futurist management consulting practice registered in Singapore. Harish is also an international member of the India Future Society, IFS. And last but not least, joining us from Portugal is Mario de Vries, media expert, thought leader, speaker, product developer, and consultant. He studied law, specializing in intellectual property, and has over 30 years experience in media and software, including having won an Academy Award. Mario is notably the author and creator of the CQ test and the first to present the theory on CQ, communication quotient measurement. Thank you all for joining us today. Okay, Hardy, let's begin with you. AI is a massively hot topic right now, but what inspired you to first venture into this space?
Well, I think I started with AI probably about 40 years ago. And of course, throughout all the years back then, as much and even more so today, it always has been an incredibly arousing subject, because it's always very interesting for a human to imagine that he has competition from a machine and that the machine perhaps becomes more smart than he himself. And today, especially now since the appearance of ChatGPT, which fills the entire airwaves of all the technology news in the world, AI is, besides US politics and climate change, probably the third largest subject anywhere in the news. So, first of all, we should talk about what actually is AI, because there's a lot of confusion what it is.
Yes.
AI is an umbrella term for a whole bunch of stuff that isn't intelligent, but is brute force, linear computing, and nothing more than that. Now, there are some interesting developments in AI, and I'm going to talk about them later. But let's talk about actually what is the state of AI right now at this stage. So when we talk about AI, we basically talk about something that we invented already in the 60s, 50s, 60s, which called neural nets. And they have actually done a lot of good for doing very, very small and focused problems, such as face recognition, such as pattern recognition for analysis, such as doing statistical exploitation of very well formatted clinical data. And there, neural nets doing a lot of good. Now, at the moment, we are seeing an explosion of this technology. We are now giving it fancy names like deep learning or machine learning and whatever have you, but it's like giving the emperor new clothes. It's exactly the same stuff that we've been doing all along. the funny thing is that we are now doing it by introducing very clever linguistic models. And we are now using the same linear neural networks and the same brute force computation to invade language. Now, let me tell you a very funny story that just happened a few days ago. Now, here is this wonderful ChatGPT, which no doubt is an interesting tool. You can go, you can be really entertained by it. You know, you can ask it any questions and boom, here comes out in very, very good English, some answer. Well, there was this very clever attorney a couple of weeks ago in New York City, and he was dealing with a personal injury case. And he was really clever using ChatGPT to research some case law that he could use in order to make his case in court. And ChatGPT was very happy to answer. It gave him 5 cases. He looked at these cases, wonderful. They did exactly support his point. He attached them to his answer. He submitted them to court. And the judge passed, obviously, to the opposing counsel. Opposing counsel researched, said, hey, wait a minute, I can't find these cases. Where did this man bring these cases? So it turned out that ChatGPT made up all 5 cases. It purely invented them. So he asked a question. He asked ChatGPT to produce a product, and ChatGPT did exactly what any unethical human will do. If I don't have the facts, I just make them up. Maybe he has learned that from certain politicians that do that too. So now here is that lawyer, and he's getting sanctioned probably by the judge. The decision hasn't been made yet. And he sits there with his 5 invented cases, which is a terrible embarrassment to him and the firm. Now, I can assure you, because I have used ChatGPT a lot, and I don't knock it, it's really cool, because for certain things, it's fantastic to write source code or to do some quick search on something. It's not bad. But if you need to rely on the information that you get, be very careful. You have to check it. Because what they do is they take huge amounts of language, and they do exactly what they've been doing since the 1950s. They do brute force neural nets, deep learning over the whole language, and they just massage the language in order to produce answers, whether they are correct or not. I asked ChatGPT, is it possible that the Danube Delta, the depth of the Danube Delta, could be over 1,000 meters? And ChatGPT said, sure, it's possible. Obviously, that is nonsense, complete nonsense. So we are now into the next question, because everyone says, is AI dangerous? And of course, everyone is thinking about that suddenly robots becoming so smart that they are taking over and, I don't know, eradicate all humans on this planet. And the whole world is completely run by robots. That is also complete nonsense, because AI is not anywhere near anything that could actually permit this kind of development. But is AI dangerous? Well, ask the lawyer that just submitted 5 fake cases. It is dangerous in such way that all of the machine learning, all the linear brute force computation is a black box. You don't know how it produced the answer. You cannot backtrace actually where the answer came from, how it produced the answer. And now we have something even worse than that. We have generative AI, which uses an output that comes from a black box, might be erroneous, and is fed back into the system as a fact. So the compilation of complications that we are having with this brute force computation, that is a problem. But having said all of that, actually, there's some very, very, very good news, because we are in the very early stages of building cognitive AI models. That means they are functioning very much like a human being functions. They function like a brain, and they manage information ecologies, and they can trace back where the information came, and they can filter it, and they can place it, and they can put it within references, and so on and so forth. All of that, we call that cognitive AI, is just in the very early stages. Now, cognitive AI will very quickly rise to the task. Why is that? The incredible adaptation of neural nets that we're seeing everywhere, deep learning, machine learning, that infiltrates absolutely every space of our life right now. And you will see that exponentially going over the next 2 to 3 years. That methodology is about to run into a complete full stop within about 3 to 4 years, because we will not even able to buy the energy it takes to support all of these computers doing all of this deep learning. So we will have to switch to a much more economical, much cleaner, much more transparent, and much more effective type of AI, which cognitive AI is. So therefore, we are having this huge euphoria right now, this wonderful idea about, and everyone is using it everywhere now, but it will have to go through a complete transition in the next 2 to 5 years to move completely to new AI models, mainly cognitive AI, because the old brute force machine learning is going to come to an end. Not completely to an end, because even in cognitive AI models, on the very last meter of the analysis, it is very useful to use neural nets, but the inner working of it has to be something completely different. And that doesn't eat all that machine power, and it is very transparent. And this is where we need to go. And by doing so, AI will no longer be dangerous, because right now it's only dangerous if we are going to believe actually what is coming out of these machine learning solutions. Now, as long as they are used to very specific and focused tasks, it's okay. Like face recognition is an example I mentioned earlier. No problem. Even there, sometimes it makes mistakes, but in these new applications that we are now using, be careful. That is my introduction to AI.
Now, would your C++8 cognitive artificial intelligence solution be comparable to AGI in any ways, more so than conventional AI models?
Let me give you a more general answer to this question. There are at least 30, 40 projects from Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, MIT, all the way to Shanghai, to Karachi, to all over the world. They are working on cognitive AI models. C++8 is only one way of doing it. Now, one of the really important things I like to say here is what C+A does is it does a top-down approach of data, not a bottom-up approach. And right now, everywhere I look, everybody is only doing bottom-up solutions. Bottom-up solutions, I believe, are not sustainable, and they are not well connecting across domains, across different types of data, across different applications and so on. So we need to actually create a top-down global AI ecology. And only if we do that, then we have a chance to really apply the kind of AI that our planet really needs. But that also means that we will have to have a global standard that, first of all, makes plain data smart data, and then places it within the subjects in which it needs to be applied.
Right, and also too, especially in well, at least in the United States, there is a lot of criticism regarding AI implementation. And for one, China is often criticized for the ways that they apply AI and big data to their governmental functions, being that they approach it with the order and control over privacy approach. So what are some ways that these countries around the world are differing in their views towards AI and governance? And how might this change over the next decade?
Look, this is almost like the discussion about guns. Should we allow guns or not? And no, I'm obviously, since I'm a Buddhist, I'm against guns, but guns are, and I have to agree with the gun proponents on that, guns can be used for security and guns can be used to commit crimes. And the same is true with AI. It depends on how you use it and how you apply it. AI can be a very powerful tool, so the more powerful something is, the more effective it is. So if you use something very effective to do something good, then that's wonderful. If you use something very effective to do something negative and bad and destructive, then it's powerful in that way. So it's very difficult, to villainize AI because China is using it to maybe handle their society in a way that we are not approving of. So I would say that what we really need to focus on is creating an AI that is focused on solving the fundamental problems that we have all together on this planet. Climate change is one of them that I believe needs to be applied. Security, global security is another one I think that needs to be applied. And that means we need to end, to fight with each other, wars, and we need to begin actually to think about, do we actually have the opportunity to live for the next 20 years? Is this planet actually still going to be around 20 years from now? Because the way we are now going in our irresponsibility in how we handle the climate, how we handle technology, how we lie to people. I mean, we tell all the people that everyone should have an electric car. There is absolute no possibility that we can build all the batteries it would take to build these electric cars. And we couldn't even generate the energy it would take to power all these electric cars. So we are lying to people, and we taking advantage of some idea or some fear that people have, too much climate change. Oh, let's go and buy an electric car. Well, it's not the solution. There are other solutions, and maybe they need to be developed through top-down cognitive AI models that are shared globally, in which we are thinking globally, in which we are acting globally, in which our technology becomes shared globally. And I think that is the way where AI must go. Because if we keep on creating AI where lawyers get fake cases that they submit to court. I think, and I'm mentioning this case because it's just hilarious. It's funny actually and entertaining. But if we keep on doing these kind of things, this is not going to make our planet a better place.
That is very true. Yes. So before we move on, I wanted to ask, what are some ways that we could tackle these issues, such as climate change, using AI?
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to understand what the consequences of our actions are. And this is a beautiful thing we can do with AI, because in the right AI models, especially when we build AI ecologies based on cognitive AI, we can actually introduce facts and then say, and then look how these facts will downstream affect different things. So as everything is connected, there's a article I wrote about 12 years ago for the Club of Amsterdam, which called 5 minutes before 12, the consequence era. And it's on the Club of Amsterdam website, and also it can be distributed as a PDF file from the Club of Amsterdam. One should read that document, because here I laid out 12 years ago already where we are going with drinking water, with desertification of farmland, and so on and so forth. So we need to not think anymore in small, singular problems. We must think in problem ecologies. And so when we use AI, then we can actually understand and use AI in that way. I mean, then we can actually understand the consequences that we are introducing through these various ways. There's and this may be a little off subject, but it is on subject, really. There's a wonderful example, and this is not original with me. This is original with a professor from Helsinki that the other day said, look, you know, when we started the age of industrialization, we went all to the easy resources first. And we went to Texas and we put the pick in the ground, and boom, the black stuff came out. Well, these days are over. And he mentioned, for example, copper. In 1995, when we produced copper ore, there was 3% copper in the ore. Today, that is 0.1%. So that means for every ton of copper, we have 999 tons of garbage, of pollution. And so we are actually moving towards a total unsustainability of our planet in terms of any resource. I mean, the gold ring that you have on your finger, you need to understand, produced about 1,000 tons of pollution, of garbage. And so unless people actually begin to understand what each and everything they do and want and consume has as a consequence to the whole planet, people will actually not adapt to a different lifestyle. AI can help us to actually understand and to begin to model complete global models that let us understand the consequences of all the actions that we are taking, so that the lying stops, so that the production for profit is directed in such way that it doesn't end the existence of our species. So right now we are actually facing existential problems of the human race. And people do not actually understand that, because they're so absorbed with who do I vote for in the next US election, or the next whatever Turkish election or German election, Or do I like this issue versus that issue? And is it okay for gays to get married or not? Who cares about all these things, you know? What
Right.
we do really care about is the dire consequences of our actions, especially ever since the beginning of industrialization, which we have actually run this planet completely down and dry. And just for kicks, last year alone, we lost 2.2% farmlands globally. And that is with an exponentially rising population. We cannot afford to lose more farmlands. No? We are about to lose enough water for irrigation. We have so many problems to solve. And yet we are hung up on a lot of BS and a lot of stuff that is only motivated by commercialization, by banking, by making money, by gaining power, and so on and so forth. We need to abstain from all of that. We need to actually think about how do we solve the existential problems of this planet. So back to AI, which is really our subject of today's meeting here. We all need to come together, and we all need to work together on a global, complete ecologic AI model that lets us understand every moving part on this planet, every action, everything that is decided, everything we do, to see how what I do here right now in Germany affects somebody in Shanghai, in New York City, or in Sao Paulo. And that is where AI needs to go. And I believe that over the next 3 to 5 years, very much motivated by understanding just how dire our pollution and climate change problems are, we will hopefully get there, and hopefully we will be motivated to do so.
Certainly. And for our viewers out there also, we will be sure to link the reports that Hardy has mentioned in the links below. So be sure to check that out down there. And one more question before we move on, actually. I want to mention Elon Musk and his proposal that we should do a 6-month pause on AI. What are your thoughts on this, that we should pause AI for 6 months to rethink where things are heading?
Well, Elon, if you listen, I think we need to accelerate, not pause, but we need to accelerate in the right direction. We need to solve the problems of AI, not demonize AI. AI, the way we use it currently, obviously has its problems, and I pointed them out and I gave examples. But the real next step that we need to do, and I described that now, I don't want to repeat it, that needs to be accelerated. So if Elon wants to do any good, he should put some effort in there and his money, and actually help to grow the space of AI in the correct direction.
I agree. We need to accelerate, not pause. Yes, very much so. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. So Mario, are you with us?
Still there, hanging in.
All right. I have some questions for you regarding AI, starting with the story about Getty Images suing Stable Diffusion. Are you aware of this news?
Sorry, I know Getty Images, but I didn't get the last part that you said.
Yes. So earlier this year, there was news that Getty Images was suing Stable Diffusion for scraping its content. The Getty Images CEO, Craig Peters, compared the current legal landscape in the generative AI scene to the early days of digital music, when there was pushback on P2P platforms like Napster over users that were downloading music illegally. Ultimately, they were forced to strike deals with license holders, like the music labels. And, recently, this has upset a lot of people in the content creator community. Given your background and expertise in media and IP as well, is today's current generative AI scene really comparable? And what are some solutions to this?
I'm not sure how you are connecting AI to this intellectual property challenge that Getty Images is
Well,
proposing.
overall, they were saying that this generative AI platform called Stable Diffusion was using Getty's images to create their images.
The thing is that each country kind of has its own legislation about intellectual property and when it's a breach of intellectual property. But yeah, there was a case in the Netherlands where when we had a new king, so the follow-up of the former queen in the Netherlands, and the new it's a tradition that the new king or the new queen always gets a beautiful painting. And what this painter did was take a photograph of the king and painted it into a beautiful painting. So the question is, yeah, in what respect is this new? Because that is always the question. If you have a photograph taken from Getty Images, completely put it in different order and make a mosaic out of the picture, is it a new creation of, or is it not? That will always be the interpretation of the people that are making decisions in that respect, and it's different in each country. That's why it's so incredibly expensive for companies like Apple or other big companies, Microsoft, or it doesn't necessarily have to be digital, but to safeguard, it can also be Nike, to safeguard their brand, because they have to file lawsuits in each and every country in the world. And generally, they just do it in the US and Europe because it's the two biggest economy, the two biggest things economy-wise. Yeah, it will be. This is something that is going to be determined by the society. If we interpret something as something new, it's going to be some kind of general perception by the society. So yeah, but I totally support the efforts of companies like Getty Images to safeguard the intellectual property of the real creators. But it's difficult.
It is indeed. I mean, there was also news about Microsoft having recently pledged to watermark their generative AI images. So, you know, is this a move in the right direction or not? I guess that is to be determined.
Well, the US is one of the most active in the field of protecting intellectual property, and we can learn a lot from them. But actually, also good things come out of it, because when people are using their Shazam to they hear a nice tune in a cafe, they are in a cafe and they are using their Shazam to see what it is.
My daughter uses it all the time.
All the time. But this is watermarking. It's not that Shazam understands the melody. No, it's watermarking. There is an unhearable code in a pitch that you cannot hear with human ears. But it's just it's a code that is being taken from the song. The same way radio stations are not writing down each song they play on the air. No, it's automatically based on the watermark in the audio. And people don't realize that. But you see that also protecting the intellectual property leads to very interesting new disruptive technology like Shazam and the audio play services that you have online now.
Yes, more exposure. It's a win-win for both parties.
But to determine intellectual property based on AI, I think that will be a very difficult task, because to my opinion, AI is a very fast calculator. It's a calculator, but to interpret the circumstances in which an image is used, or the context of the new creation, that will still be very difficult for AI to accomplish. And we just talked about climate change. Yeah, it's like what Hardy says. You can point a gun on climate change, but maybe it would be wiser to use AI to look for other means to safeguard food production and to safeguard fresh water, because we all know the answer to save the planet, and that's kill half of the human beings. Then you save the planet.
Let's try to avoid that one.
So it would be my advice to not use AI to figure out who is the most pollutive on the planet, or who is causing
Jeff Bezos.
who is causing the biggest problems. That's all man-made. But figure out how to do underwater farming. Can we not have food farming underwater at the bottom of the ocean? Use AI to figure out that, and not to point a gun at climate change, because it is my personal opinion that there as a matter of fact, this is the basis of my theory about the communication quotient that you mentioned in your introduction. It's factor analysis, and factor analysis is a very difficult thing, especially for a tool like AI.
What is the communication quotient? Can you explain that?
Sorry, there's a comment.
Oh, yes.
We'll
get to that.
Okay.
Yes.
Going to kill half of the planet. Okay.
Yes, but
Sorry.
I would like for you to share a bit about your communication quotient and what it means.
Yes. Well, it started when many years ago. Well, as a matter of fact, it started already 20 years ago when I had to give a lecture at Texas University in Dallas, Fort Worth. And I thought you can be so smart. You can have a very high IQ. But if you cannot explain it, it's worthless. There's no, what is the value of your IQ if you cannot, there must be something else. And you can also have a very sensitive EQ, very emotional. You can be very angry, but if you cannot explain it, it's worthless. So there needs to be some kind of communication quotient that combines your intelligence and your emotions and make something transmittable. So then I came to the conclusion that this communication quotient needs to have factor analysis. I can explain factor analysis maybe with an example that is appealing to Elon Musk. You mentioned him. that in a couple of years, this self-driving car needs to make a choice. Am I going to kill the dog or am I going to kill the cow? That is the question. But to so maybe being an American, a dog as a family friend has a higher value than a cow, so the car chooses to kill the cow. But you should never do it in India, because in India the cow is sacred, and
Yes.
that is factor analysis. There is a, I'm going to close the door because they are going to do some cleaning here. Okay, that's done. There is a new law in Brazil that that has to do with the UN sustainability goals, and this law kind of focuses on free education for everybody, for overall social level. So they are pushing a lot of money in free education for everybody. But they did never take into account that if you want to offer free education to everybody, you need to offer free transport. Because if you are not able to take the bus to go to school, then this whole concept of free education is worthless. And that's factor analysis. And that's exactly what I'm doing in this communication quotient system.
Excellent.
And it will be very difficult for AI because AI at this point to me is a calculator, and it's based on a mathematical system that may not be true, because the whole mathematical system that we are using is also made up by man, and we are already challenging Einstein's relativity theory. Because we cannot use our mathematical system to explain the Big Bang. So it's yeah, and it's so it's made. Our mathematical system is based on let me check the right word for this. Straight corners, that was I was looking for. The whole mathematical system is based on straight corners, but nowhere in nature we have straight corners. Even when you zoom in on an ice crystal, there are no straight corners. From a distance, it looks very sharp, but yeah, we have to change our way of explaining things.
Yes, very much so. All right, Harish, I wanted to bring you on because there was a comment in the chat regarding climate change and, you know, whether or not, you know, humans, it would be better off if there were less humans on the planet. What are your thoughts?
I don't think the world is too small for the current population of 8 billion people, more or less. I don't believe the world is too small for 9 billion. I don't think that the world, this planet, when I say the world, I mean planet Earth, I don't think it would be too small for twice as many people as there are right now, right? Consider this, when we talk about climate change, what very often is, said, I'm trying to make sure that I sound right. I'm not trying to be politically correct, but I want to get my message straight. When we talk about climate change, we very often say that we are destroying the world. I disagree with that statement. What we are doing, in effect, when we allow for climate change to happen, to continue, and to fuel climate change, is you're not ending this world. We're not destroying the planet. The planet is a rock that will continue to float around the sun, revolving, right? What we are doing is we are ending the inhabitability of this planet for our species, for human beings. right? So can this planet, if we don't mess up, if we don't do stuff that we should not be doing, if we don't do stuff that is unintelligent, can it support 16 billion people? Can it even support 10 times as many people as there are right now? Maybe it might be a little crowded, but we can always build upwards and downwards and somehow manage and like coexist with, which we are not doing right now. We can coexist with other life forms. And that's where a lot of the problems begin. Our failure to coexist with other life forms, to coexist with the wider biosphere, right? So the planet is not dying. The system that supports human life, we are killing it, number one. Number two, why we are killing it, not because we are reproducing or growing in numbers, right? Or that because we are consuming so much, right, to fulfill our needs, but we are consuming more and more and more with each passing day. Still, after decades of talking about global warming and climate change and all the risk factors, right, that the 5 minutes to midnight kind of talk, decades, right? And we talk about this action, this commitment, yada yada yada, but we continue to consume more and more and more, increasingly, than we actually need as a species to survive, right? And why is this? Because we are selfish as individuals. And we are selfish because we are greedy as individuals. Now, you multiply that to across the population of about 8 billion today. That's very problematic. And yet, when you are greedy and selfish, it's not that much of a problem. When Hardy is greedy and selfish, it's not that big a problem. When Mario is greedy and selfish, it's not that big of a problem, right? When Felix is greedy and selfish, doesn't do that much damage, right? Doesn't end a generation. I'm not going to make any difference to this world, no matter how greedy I get in my current situation. But if you're a super rich person, if you're a super powerful person, if you're an influential person, and you're extremely greedy, right? If you're part of that 1%, and you're in any definition, right? Whether wealth, whether power, whether influence, whether celebrity, whatnot, right? And you're exceptionally greedy, you do a lot of damage, because your footprint in terms of damage resulting from your greed upon the environment, upon the inhabitability of this planet for the human species, is far more than 90% of the rest combined, at least, if not 99, right? So that's where the problem lies. So it's not about half of humanity, if we kill that, it's like playing Thanos, right? I snap a finger, half the universe or 2/3 of the universe disappears, we are all fine, because enough resources to be equally distributed, and be sufficient. That's not how it's going to work, because the fewer people that remain, they're just going to get a lot more greedy, a lot more power hungry, a lot more wealth hungry, wanting a lot more luxury, and then even so much more with far fewer people to share is not going to be enough for them, right? And they're still going to wipe it down, right? So that's why that comment of mine, because he said rather than talk over each other, you can just add in a comment. So I added that comment into the chat group. So that's where my comment came from. It's about how we do things and how we use and consume things that's killing the planet. And I agree with a lot of things that have already been mentioned by Hardy and Mario, that yes, with technology, we can accelerate the quest for solutions, effective, good, innovative solutions to solve the problems of climate change, climate crisis, whatnot, right? But the problem with humanity is that unless and until we actually get out of this problem, and evolve already, what I call human evolution, we are always going to find a way to circumvent any solution we come up with. The best of technologies we continue to develop over the next few decades, if you have that long left, right? Lack of collective intelligence does not destroy us first. And I'm talking about actual intelligence, not artificial intelligence. If that does not destroy us first, if let's say we continue to do multifold, exponentially more with each passing day than we've already achieved as of 2023, collectively, humanity will still find a way to end its existence because of that greed, if it does not evolve in terms of personal characteristics, personal values, how it views the world, like, Hardy just confessed to being a Buddhist, right? But it's one thing to say that I believe in something. It's another to live it, right? So there are a lot of people who go, I'm environmental, I recycle, I do this, I do that. But are you actually living the values you claim, right? To look into, okay, what are we doing this for? What is this talk of climate change for? It makes a little difference to the planet itself or to the universe or to other life forms, perhaps, right? Or life will find its way. There'll still be life on planet Earth after we're gone. But what are we going to do to actually save our species, as in after we're gone, our descendants continue to inhabit this planet, right? Until we start to think of that every second of our lives, every day, starting like right now, technology is not going to be that useful in solving the climate problem. Sorry if I'm a little too straight talking on this matter. First and foremost, right? When anything begins, we start with it problematically as a human species, then we actually get to use it correctly, right? Before getting to use it correctly. And right now, the big problem with AI is firstly, how we are perceiving things is that, okay, first and foremost, generative AI. Artificial intelligence is not limited to just generative AI. It's got a potential to be a lot more than just generative. That's the first element. But everyone is very focused on just generative AI right now, because that's a big thing that's impressed minds, and everyone's kind of deluded. And I'm going to get to that in a bit. Don't mind if I take some time, right? So what that means is that people are going to be unprepared. And that means economic consequences down the road. And that means, like you end a relationship, you go on a rebound, and then you make some mistakes. So when you have a rebound, right, paying economic consequences because of certain failures, because of oversight, or because being caught blindsided because you're focused too much on one thing, right? What happens is you make more mistakes. And then what do you do to recover from those mistakes? More rebound, right? So what you do is you keep producing, you keep building your greed, and you keep going in that vicious cycle of more production, more consumption. It doesn't solve anything, right? So again, tying back to the climate issue. Not that I want to make this a single issue conversation about just climate, right? Okay, one. Two, human beings, they get impressed with the wrong things too easily, right? First and foremost, we are still in a state as of 2023 where AI is the future. AI is not the present. But the way people are behaving is that we are living in an AI present. And that is very problematic, because what it means is that we are setting ourselves up for another bubble, right? We are getting hyper excited. And when I say another bubble, I'm referring to the .com bubble of the past, right? Where everyone goes, okay, it's cool, have a website and let's squat on it and then get some investors to part money because look, it's online. It's groundbreaking. It's going to be high value. You're going to get high returns, right? And then what happened? There were consequences, right? So what's happening with AI right now is everyone's hyper excited because someone came up with a brilliant product known as ChatGPT. Yes, it's got its downsides. Yes, I personally pushed it to its very, very limits. And I'm like, I go, okay, I mean, this is a very underwhelming experience. I've actually experienced that with ChatGPT. And then the last 3 months, I've absolutely buried myself in any and every different type of generative AI tool that I can, find myself, like to get myself on, to get myself onto, right? I'm tripping because I get very excited about this topic. So I've been immersing myself deeply in AI design, AI photo generation, AI music, whatnot, right? For the last 3 months. And believe me, it's always been a very underwhelming experience, because what a lot of people don't realize, or some people actually start deluding themselves, or start building false beliefs, or some people start lying that, oh, this is actually enhancing what I can offer you because I'm using it, right? And this is actually creating a very nasty myriad of vicious cycles. It's not just one vicious cycle, but myriads of confusing vicious cycles, right? Where you have a lot of these products that, one, don't live up to their promise. Number two, don't even live up to the premise, forget the promise. Number three, someone is doing it. That's made headlines. So why don't I sell? I replicate something, and then, okay, 1 month subscription, $15. Not much. If you're an executive in the US earning, let's say X amount, $15 a month is not much. But if I get 1,000 fools like you, I get easy $15,000 sitting there doing absolutely nothing after I worked 3 months on setting this up, right? So you've actually got this sort of thing, and then you're actually getting investors to pump a lot of money into this sort of efforts because look, I don't want to be paying for this. Well, I want to make some money out of this, right? And if I don't make money from people who actually use my portal or my site or platform or tool, I've got investors parting money, and I go, okay, I do some accounting, yada yada yada. There's a lot of stuff like that out there. No names mentioned, right? But it happens. This happened with the .com. It's happening again with generative AI, right? And what this means down the road, is you're going to have a lot of hype, a lot of delusions, a lot of expectations. But hear this: not every generative AI product, and there are other good companies that are putting really genuinely good stuff that is generative AI out there. You have to concede that, you have to admit that, and that is the future. You have to concede that. Yes, there are weaknesses to that right now. Downsides. Amazon wasn't doing great until it became Amazon the Great, right? Same thing. ChatGPT, yes, it's got its flaws, but ChatGPT is the future, and OpenAI is the next Amazon. It's going to be around for a very long time as a powerhouse tech company. Let's face it, that is the future. And if you want to get into an open live debate with me on that, great. I'm going to trash you on it. But let's put that aside, right? But not every company, not every person putting up an AI or a generative AI tool online right now, or who's been doing so for the past 6 months, is actually OpenAI. Not every product is ChatGPT. And that's, I would say, maybe 99 out of 100 are not exactly ChatGPT. And that is a problem. And that will lead to a bubble. And that will lead to some problems, right? And that also means this, that people are right now so overwhelmed, right, by ChatGPT, so impressed by ChatGPT, which itself is flawed. This is one of, let's say, 100 products out there, right? 1 out of 100 that's absolutely good, right? 1 good out of 100, okay? And it's really, really good, right? Like it's that much better than things being that much worse, if you get what I mean. Now,
Right.
they're so overwhelmingly impressed by it. What it tells me is not that ChatGPT is that good. It tells me how unprepared they are for the sort of things that Hardy's opened this conversation with today, where 3 years from now, 4 years from now, when the big tech companies, as well as some small startups or some fresh PhD graduates or even bachelor's graduates from some very brilliant universities around the world, they come out and they really put the real good stuff out there that really automate a lot of very serious industrial processes, scientific processes, research processes. The vast majority of the educated world, the STEM community, the PMAT community, they're not going to be prepared for that. And that means a lot of disruption. A lot of disruptions, right? So we've been talking about disruption as a big topic in business for the past 20 years. We've talked about the VUCA world for the past 20 years. But the next 3 to 4 years, 5 years, this is a critical period where you have people who are genuinely good AI developers with genuinely good AI technical ideas, and you actually put that to genuine, marketable, industrial, as well as consumer use. And when companies are not prepared for that, executives are not prepared for that, CEOs are not prepared for that, you have disruption. Certain companies corner the market, and that can't spell too good for too many of everybody, right? So yes, so we are setting up a lot of problems. What is the question again?
Amazing. Well, I mean, we've been covering everything from AI, climate change, where it's all heading, and we were talking about abundance. You know, how AI is going to be taking on, these issues of waste.
Let me add to
in the
that.
Wally world.
Let me add to that. What AI can do. See, AI on its own, and this is where I touch on what Hardy opened with, right? I'm going to build on everything that he talked about, right? Because I'm in agreement, right? AI or any other technology or any other technological element of the let's say the past 50 to 100 years, on its own, in a silo, is worth zero. The router in your home, if you don't have an internet service provider or a data provider or data plan, what is the value of your router even if you pay $200 for it for being top-notch, top quality from a top brand? Its value today is absolute zero, even if you bought it yesterday for $200, right? That's the value of a router. That's the same value of AI. If AI is not combined with some database system, not combined with the internet to, and a couple of other things to, create a language model, what's the value of that AI? Zero, right? So, okay, let's talk about reducing waste. This is where this concept of the metaverse, as they call it right now, and 10 years ago, I was talking about this as a virtual world, right?
Right.
And no one calls it a virtual world anymore just because Mark Zuckerberg says we call it the metaverse. So everyone jumps on the metaverse. Fine, metaverse it is, right? And metaverse is not just something that is going to be online, like with your digital VR headsets, but it's going to be all around you. And it's going to be transcendent. You go into digital space, virtual space, simulated space, and in physical reality. And you can be in both at the same time, right? And what it means is that when you have products, I can get my very cheap $6 fast fashion t-shirts here in very, very expensive Singapore, $6 t-shirts or $9 t-shirts, right? On cheap knockoff sales. And I can have like really cheap $20, $25 trousers underneath, right? Cargos, right? And I walk around in Japanese slippers on budget. And I could look like the best dressed person on the planet, even when I'm in the shower in the bathroom. 24/7, 365, right? Whatever appearance I want, whatever look I want, right? For anybody, right? I want to look like 100 different things to 100 different people looking at me in the same room. I can do that, right? And this is what, when you take AI and you combine it with augmented reality, combine it with mixed reality, combine it with virtual simulation, holographics, whatnots, right? In convergence to create what I call X reality. This is what AI can do to power a sort of an economy for consumer goods, consumer lifestyle products, like whether it's apparel, fashion, footwear, jewelry, right? So you don't have to extract gold anymore, right? So, it may be a lot cheaper, right? The ladies' handbags that are, let's say, 12,000, 15,000 euros for the really top upmarket ones you get in the fashion capitals in Europe. If you have them virtual, you don't have to actually manufacture them from real material extracted from nature. Imagine how much material you save, right? If, let's say, a 3-bedroom home is enough for my family and I don't need a mansion, if I'm a billionaire, and if I build a massive 100,000 square foot mansion on 25 acres of land, buy a massive Rivera, right, with a 200-foot yacht, right, on the private jetty, right, and it doesn't actually exist in the physical reality of this world. Imagine how much environment I'm actually saving. Imagine if my equestrian sports, my steeplechase horse riding sports are all in virtual reality. I don't need real horses. I mean, I don't want to slaughter the horses, but maybe they can be put to better use or be housed better and treated better, more humanely, right? But you don't need to do sport with them on massive grounds. Imagine how much land savings you've got and what that means for the environment when you convert that for healthy agriculture, 1, 2, afforestation, right? The reverse of deforestation, right? How much land can you reclaim for reforestation, afforestation, and proper, maybe, multi-story modern agricultural purposes, and where you automate agriculture in such a way that it's ensured to run in a sustainable fashion. You combine AI to manage your electricity flows, to make sure that wastage does not happen, right? How much can you save for the environment, right? So can AI really be put to good uses in terms of cutting your waste, cutting your product waste, your material waste, your extraction? It can. The question is there going to be resistance to it? It's 2023. The handphones should be going out of existence by now, right? We should have 2025. Why is that not going to happen? Simple. The world vehemently, right, almost violently rebelled against Google Glass. Why?
Yes.
Too much disruptive impact. Google Glass, great idea, great product. If that had picked up, Google, expensive, but a lot of cheaper variations would have hit the market, and all of us would have had our computers attached to our eyes right now with a lot less eye damage, because mobile screens are probably more likely to hurt your eyes than holographic displays. And yes, we would have gotten that far because people were encouraged to develop the technology that far had smart glasses been allowed to take off 7 years ago, but people resisted, right? So if we talk about acceleration of the good AI, the safe AI, the responsible AI, is there going to be natural resistance to it? Because one, people don't get it. Two, people know that they have been fooling others to believe that they are smart when they're not actually that smart, and they will not survive in a world where you have technology and information that democratized with the good AI out there, right? So they're going to have one to resist it. Three, they won't be able to, monopolize certain things the way they are able to now if the good AI hits, right? So is there going to be a problem for the good AI to actually advance fast enough for us to actually have all these benefits that I just talked about, right? Reduction of physical production, because people can make do with virtual goods. One example, probably smarter people than I am can probably give you a lot more examples, right? But yes, it's possible that you can reduce physical consumption to help and benefit society in terms of their pockets, and as well as survival of our future generations by securing the environment. It's possible. It is possible. But is there going to be resistance, right? Not just because of financial greed purposes, but because of ego purposes. I believe it's going to happen because, again, the human evolution that I see as being necessary to be in tandem with the technological evolution, I don't see it happening anytime soon. Tragic. It's tragic, but I hope it happens soon because I have kids. And even when I'm not around and when my kids are not around, I want their descendants to be around.
Right. I mean, look at but also too, we have to keep in consideration of COVID and what happened with the lockdowns and how this crisis propelled people that would have never used Zoom to suddenly use Zoom as their primary ways of working and such. It's a step in that direction, but you're right, we are stalled in many ways, and there's much to be done. Thank you for sharing with that. Hardy, I know you're super eager to chime in here, so I'd like to invite you to respond.
Well, first of all, I would like to say I liked what Harish had to say, because there's a lot of cool things that he mentioned and true things that he mentioned. I want to go beyond what Harish said a little bit, or build on that. Look, how do I put this best? All the things that Harish just mentioned and the things that we are talking about in AI, they are like a bunch of super sexy images that are very arousing to a lot of people. They are only the visible part. It is, how do we create some information that we can look at, consume, and that arouses us how cool it is and what it says, and so on. Noam Chomsky, the famous professor from MIT, he called the latest language tools that are out there, such as ChatGPT, the greatest plagiarizing machine ever invented. And I have to agree with him. We are very much focused. The whole AI industry is very much focused, probably because of commercial constraints, because of all of these things that need to make money today. And of course, people now know, for example, ChatGPT received billions in funding suddenly. Wow, billions, how can I get some of that? So everybody is jumping into that same space. But let's call all of these things front-end stuff. The skin, the visible thing. We need to go in AI much further, much deeper than to create these arousing visible things. They're like pornography. They're not really they're not the real thing. They're just something that arouses us. What we need to solve initially and first is, and that nobody has actually done, well, not nobody, but I don't want to refer to any projects I'm involved in, but the first thing that really needs to be solved is a comprehensive global data model that actually converts dumb data into self-organizing smart data that finds its way into a global data repository completely unsupervised and self-organizing. And it needs to be an ecologic model. And it needs to be a model that allows us to access vital information that is not focused on giving us some quick payoff, but actually gives us depth perception into the future, that actually gives us ideas about the consequences of our current behavior. This is a much deeper and much greater thing that needs to be built. And yes, there's a very, very clear path in how to get there. So I understand that Mario earlier said, well, you know, that's not possible. Nobody has done anything like this. We will never have this. No, not true. We just need to solve the inner workings of a global AI environment. And for that, there are already examples. One of them is C+8. So once we build out on that idea, now we can actually plug in any kind of solution, any kind of application, any kind of virtual reality, any kind of whatever we want to consume. But we need to first create something that is better than just a raw, stupid, linear calculator. And that was, I think, Harish said that earlier, and I fully agree. We are still stuck in the age of calculators. And I also agree with the disruption will come later. It will come in a few years from now. And I have a perfect example. I built in 1999 and I patented in 1999 a complete cloud computing environment. And I built it and I installed it on a stack of 8 servers. And one server I called the page composer, and one server I called the authentication server, and one server I called database A and database 2 and so on. They were all distributed potentially, but of course I had them in one rack. And I literally rolled that into the offices of potential customers, said, look, this is the future. This is and they said to me, no, this is too complicated. And no, nobody ever will entrust this data into someone else's computer and so on and so forth. So here I sat, and then the dot-com crisis came and the crash. And I thought, wow, I have this beautiful thing. And why is nobody wanting it? And guess what? 6 years later, everyone was doing it. All of a sudden, everyone thought, oh, wow, yeah, this is a cool thing. We should be doing this. No? So if you look at my patent I filed in 1999, look at the disclosure section. You actually read something that is exactly and identical to what Amazon Cloud is or what Microsoft Azure is. It's exactly one-on-one implemented. So the point I'm trying to make here is the inventions that we really need to solve this planet already here. They just haven't been able to get to the front yet, because the pain is not big enough for anyone to allow that, and two, the greed is too much for anyone to look at this, because it's much easier to make to make money with some arousing front end stuff than actually make money with something you can see, because it's a deep insight, an inner working of a very complex model of analysis and data and layering and so on and so forth. So look at my book that I published in 2016, The Quantum Relations Principle. I encourage you to read it, or my new book that is now coming out, Quantum Relations Applied, in which I completely lay out how such complex inner workings need to be done and how the needs to work. When I wrote the second book now on quantum relations, I spent the first 150 pages to actually talk about something completely unrelated, but very related, and that is that we need to give up the will to power. Because it is the will to power that actually bars us from acting as one species. And there's one thing that Harish said that is absolutely correct and really on the point. Yes, this planet will not disappear. It's a rock that goes around the sun and will probably go for another 1 billion or 2 years. But whether it still is inhabitable or whether it's going to turn into Venus in the next 30 years, that's a different question. So we may not be on this planet. The planet will still be around. And so in order to catch that, we actually don't have a choice of AI. We desperately need that kind of advanced AI that I'm talking about in order to solve the fundamental problems of this planet.